Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Islanders live on the Thames Festival Facebook, YouTube, website. Tonight is a very, very important evening because we are going to be talking about Tate and Lyle, which is an icon of British history. And if we go to Tate and Lyle website, read a bit more about what Tate and Lyle is, we can read that Tate and Lyle Sugars is an historic and cherished brand in the sugar market in Europe, specializing in cane sugar. Its Thames refinery in London is the largest in Europe and has been refining cane sugar since 1878. And all of that is true, but that doesn't tell not even half of the story. The many, many stories of the generation and thousands of men and women who worked in Tate and Lyle doesn't tell the story. What does Tate and Lyle meant and still means for many, many communities in East London? And that is what Richard and Alan and Kevin and Teresa, who was with us but is having some technical problems, they will be telling us that story tonight. However, before we begin tonight, it's not very easy for us to talk about this, but we would love to pay tribute to Jenny Munro. A lot of you watching tonight know about Jenny. She worked at Newham Archives, and it's very difficult to put in words what Jenny, who sadly passed away recently, meant to all of us who work, volunteer in the history and heritage sector in Newham and in London, because a lot of the projects that we have been doing, we would not have been able to do without Jenny's help. I personally learned a lot from her when I went to the many times I went to the archive to do some research, and I owe her a big deal. All of us owe Jenny Munro a big deal. So I love all of you to join us in a musical minute of silence to pay tribute to Jenny. Thank you very much as well to James King, who is coordinating this project, and to everybody at the Thames Festival for allowing us to pay tribute to Jenny Munro this evening. And now it is a time for me to introduce our guests this evening. I'll begin with Alan Mead. Alan is, I believe, the longest serving employee of Tate and Lyle, still active. Where he works as a technical consultant. Alan, when we finish tonight, I need to ask you what you have for breakfast every morning, because I want to have as many energy for as many years as you. And in recent years, he has also been giving talks on the history of Tate and Lyle based on his own experiences, including an unforgettable talk at the Royal Docks History Club. I have to say, I have had the privilege to have Alan as a guest at the Royal Docks Learning and Activity Centre History Club meetings. And when we did a survey early in the year about what was your favorite moment, a lot of people said Alan's talk. So all of you watching tonight, you are very lucky, because you're gonna have the opportunity to enjoy Alan's anecdotes and stories again. Kevin Russell worked for about 10 years at Tate and Lyle in different departments. He was very involved with the sports section, representing Tate and Lyle football and cricket teams. I believe, Kevin, you were sort of like a star of the cricket team at the time, for judging for all the things I have seen in those newspapers you have sent me. And I hope you forgive me for saying that Kevin's wife, Colleen, who, by the way, was one of the speakers at episode 1 of The Islanders, Colleen said that he was also very involved in the social events, including lots of drinking socially. And I am very...
We did.
And I'm very happy that she mentioned that, because dinner parties, Christmas parties, all social events that were organized for and by Tate and Lyle employees and their families, and for the families, are also going to be a big part of today's story. Richard Rackstraw, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Richard Rackstraw. Yeah. So talking about parties and events, Richard's first memory of Tate and Lyle, if I remember well when we first talked, is going to Christmas parties as a very, very young boy. Richard, who is also joining us today, worked there as an apprentice electrician from 1966 to 1971. And he went back to work at Tate and Lyle again later in life. And as many people in the community, Richard had family members who also worked on Tate and Lyle, including, I think, his father, grandfather, brother-in-law, sister, and has a lot of stories to share with us. And I'm very happy that I think we've got Teresa back with us again. And Teresa, thank you very much for joining. Teresa tonight is going to give a voice to the many, many, many thousands of women that not only found a job at Tate and Lyle, but also found a second home and a second family. And to all of you watching tonight, I know a lot of you watching tonight might also have worked at Tate and Lyle, or you know family members, friends. Please feel free to participate with your comments or your questions to Richard, Alan, Kevin, or Teresa. And I'll do my best to read all of your questions and your comments at the end of the show. I have to say, it's easier to find somebody who knows somebody who worked at Tate and Lyle than, I think it's nearly impossible to go to Silvertown and North Woolwich and find somebody who doesn't know anybody who worked at Tate and Lyle. I don't know if what I just said makes sense, but I think you know what I mean. Like, everybody in North Woolwich and Silvertown knows somebody who worked on Tate and Lyle, and that's why we have so many stories to share tonight. But let's put your memories in context, and I'm going to show you a very, very short video clip explaining the basics of the history of Tate and Lyle. what are we missing if we're talking about the history of Tate and Lyle, how things began until 1921? Alan, I think you had prepared some notes you'd like to share with us this evening.
Well, you've covered a lot of them anyway, but Henry Tate, he started life as a grocer's apprentice in Liverpool, and 7 years later he set up his own grocery shop. His business was successful and grew to a chain of 6 stores by the time he was 35. In 1859, Henry became a partner in John Wright & Co. sugar refiners. He sold his grocery business in 1961, and by 1869 he gained complete control of the company and renamed it as Henry Tate and Sons. You've gone on to say, already said that about he purchased the patent to make sugar cubes, and he built Thames Refinery. I think while talking about Henry, you should say that he was renowned for his concern for workers' conditions and built the Tate Institute right opposite Thames Refinery with a bar and dance hall for the workers' creation. He was a philanthropist, donating considerable sums of money to many charitable causes and founding and donating to the Tate Gallery. In 1898, the title of baronet was bestowed upon Henry Tate. Going to the other side, Abraham Lyle was an apprentice in the lawyer's office in Greenup, later working in his father's cooperage business. The cooperage business obviously was connected with syrup because that's where how the syrup was sold in wooden barrels made in his father's business. In partnership with a friend, John Kerr, he developed a shipping business transporting, amongst other materials, raw sugar from the West Indies. Together with 4 partners, he bought the Glebe Refinery in Greenup, later selling his interest and moving to London, where, as you said, in 1881, 1882, he built the Plaistow Wharf, or Lyle's as it was more commonly known, specialising in golden syrup. In 1980, the refining operations ceased at Plaistow Wharf, but packing of white refined sugar continued for many years, and the manufacture of the golden syrup from ingredients provided from Thames Refinery continues to this very day. Unlike Tate's, the Lyles, it was the next generation of Lyles that the honours were bestowed, 2 of Abraham's sons becoming baronets. It was in 1921, you've already said this, long after the deaths of Henry and Abraham, that the 2 refineries merged to become Tate and Lyle Sugars. And it's believed, and commonly believed, that the 2 of them never even met each other. Yet they have probably one of the most famous 2 double family names in the country. That, I think, what else have I got? Oh, yes, one thing, I think, for many years, many of the senior management were drawn from the Tate and the Lyle families and their close relatives. The only remaining member of either family now with Tate and Lyle's Sugars is Duncan Tate, who is the great grandson of Sir Henry, and he's in charge of sugar trading. Although the family members got preferential employment, they didn't get preferential treatment. They had to work their way up to get good jobs, and if they didn't, they were out the door. They weren't given grace and favour treatment at all. Unfortunately, in some ways, but good in others, in 2010, Tate and Lyle sold its sugar interests, including the brand names, to American sugar refiners.
Thank you very much, Alan. So I'm going to show you the first round of pictures. We got this beautiful picture from Newham Archives, Tate and Lyle in Silvertown, 1978. We've got glass plate dogs. I'm not sure what that means, so I might ask if any of you know exactly what glass plate means. We got this picture also. This one is courtesy of Tate Lyle, and we've got this photo also from Tate and Lyle website. And my first question, a bit to all of you, for all of us, including myself, who are not very familiar with the industry, what really happens in the refinery? What is happening in that huge building? I don't know who wants to start. Alan, you?
Yeah. Raw sugar is brought in nowadays by bulk carrier to the refinery from all over the world. Central and South America, Caribbean, Africa, and more recently some from the Middle East and Far East. The raw sugar is fairly pure. It is at least 97% sucrose, which is the chemical name for the pure white sugar. It goes through various processes. Initially, simplified, the sugar is washed because a lot of the impurity, even though it's very small amounts, no more than 3%, is on the surface of the crystal. That is washed off. The remaining crystal is then dissolved, in the industry referred to as melting. It's not melting, it's dissolved. It is purified chemically, precipitating out the impurities, which are then filtered off. The remaining liquor is decolorized. Excuse me. It's decolorized and then crystallized to give us basically white sugar. Very simply, the syrup separated when they crystallize it is recrystallized again to get more sugar, and ultimately some of those syrups go off to plaster wolf to make golden syrup, the raw ingredients for golden syrup.
And here we have a photo of the old building in Plaster Wharf in 1983. And this is how it looks now. It's this huge, beautiful photo from Kevin Hales. Thank you very much, Kevin, for letting me use this photo. Can any of you answer this question for me about glass plate docks? What does it mean?
I could only guess that there were windows on the wharf side below the crane. It's only a guess.
Okay.
And it's before my day.
We move to the next round of photos. This photo is from Richard, who is here with us. Is an award that he received as Apprentice of the Year. Here we have Alan in action at work at the lab. Here we have the packing floor of Tate and Lyle in the 1960s. And here we have the bagging department in 1946. I love this photo because the first time I saw this photo, I thought it was a mistake. I thought, oh, they have put this photo by mistake in my Tate and Lyle folder. Because the first time I saw this photo, I thought this was like a dressmaking factory. And until, no, this can't be, this looks like they're making clothes, so it's a dressmaking factory, until I realized that they are making bags out of clothes. And with this round of photos, I wanted to ask to each of you, and I'm going to begin with Richard, what did you do at Tate and Lyle? Richard, tell us about your experience. What did you do at the factory?
I started off as an apprentice in 1966. Tate Lyle was at the time the largest employer in Newham, or was it then? Was Eastham, wasn't it? And it was probably the best place to go for an apprenticeship because the difference of work that you got there was fantastic. You got a complete overall picture of the trade that you decided to go in. and I was an electrician, but there was about 6 or 7 different trades that you can actually be an apprentice to. We spent 3 months in each department, going around from department to department with qualified electricians. I progressed when I got to 21 and come out of my time. I was then employed as an engineer on the Yesser packing floors, on the first and successor floors. And that really was a fun place to be. It was a hive of activity. The young girls and the women that worked there were a breed of their own.
Absolutely.
They were a match for any man, I can tell you that. But it was hard work. It wasn't easy work. The machines were fast and you had to keep up, because if a machine stopped, it went back. If the packing machine stopped, it had a domino effect right the way down the line. So you had to keep the machines moving. While I was there, they put in the high-speed S's, and that revolutionized the packing floor at the time. They were packing something like 150 packs a minute. Now, if you imagine that shooting past, that is going at some speed. Yeah, it was just a fun place to be.
Kevin, what about you? What did you do at Tate and Lyle?
Yeah, well, I started in 77. Funny thing is, the clip you showed there, the 2 jetties, when we first started, you put in an application. I mean, I actually worked 2 years for a local firm in Woolwich, a cabinet making company, but all my mates were Tate and Lyle's, like, you know, and I was going to go into the warehouse. You knew what you was going to do, like, so you applied for it, and I got my application come through, and actually started off on the floor sweeping the sugar. You know, because there used to be like the forklifts flying around everywhere, and they could bang into a bag of sugar. You would be sweeping it up and all that. And then I was a loader onto the loading bank, the taut liners, all the lorries and all that, loading them up. And you had a chance to either go to the raw sugar or the refined wolf. And I actually fancied raw sugar. Looked a bit harder work for me. So I went down to the refined wolf. I spent 3 or 4 years there. I love that job. I've got to say, like, you know, I mean, I put in 35 years with Royal Mail, but unfortunately, I got made redundant from the refined wolf. But as me and Alan was talking earlier, sorry, Richard, I got made redundant, but I didn't have a job as an electrician's mate. So I could have been Richard's mate if we'd have sort of like crossed paths. So, you know, and then after 5 or 6 years working, doing the sugar, loading the barges and all this, like, you know, I didn't know where it come from, you know, how it works and all that. But being an electrician's mate, the last 2 years I worked in here as the mate, we was working in different departments, and you can actually see how things were working in there. Like, you know, when Richard said about, or I think it was Alan said about the high speed, we used to see like they were like washing machines spinning I think it was centrifugals, what they called, or something like
Centrifuges.
that. Yeah, and they would like spin round, take all the so-called rubbish out the sugar, but it's still used. Like, you know, you'd have it in sort of like syrup form, all the stuff that come out, you know, and it would be white sugar. But I was lucky enough to work in different departments in there, like, you know, and they were very good times. Like, you know, as I say, give me back 32 years to 10 years in the room in the Tate Lyle's, and I would take the Tate Lyle's one, like, you know, because the community and all that was just fantastic, you know, in there. So,
thank you, Kevin. Teresa, what did you do at Tate and Lyle?
Well, I started in Tate and Lyle's in 1968. I first got a job. I happened to be going to Roman Road Market on a bus, and we see a notice out. Jumped off the bus and we thought, let's give it a try. we ended up going in, and we started off on the packing floor, just stacking parcels of sugar, and they were £15 and each parcel, and you had to stack. I think we used to do about 45 tons a shift, and that was in 8 hours. We had services, which is the men, they just didn't run any machine. The men, they just used the service for us. So they take the pallets away, they give us pallets there, they'd start up conveyors if we wanted them to, and all that. And Trick Wayne and all that. It was very hard work to start with, especially on the stacking. You know, you 8 hours a day, and but it was lovely to work with. There was loads of people. We had 14 machines on one floor, and there were 6 people to each machine. So you can imagine everything was done in sections. The wrapping of the parcel, the stacking of the parcel, filling the bag magazines up, everything was manual. You didn't have anything auto at all. And after that, I went on to a senior supervisor and worked my way. I went up to Liverpool and see the new machinery coming in up there, and to Scotland. And everyone worked as a good team. Everyone helped out each other. They worked hard, and it was a brilliant company to work for. You couldn't have asked for more. In the end, I spent 20 plus years there, and I became a supervisor, and then I took over which they called faux ladies in them days and faux men. And then I spent the last 18 years down in Thames Refinery, which was completely different, because it was like going out of a small fish into a big fish. And it was really another change, where they had all the automatic machines. There was only one person running the machine. And it was really very good to work for, and people were just amazing.
And Teresa, is that, let me find this photo. Is that you with the Queen?
Oh yes, that was the biggest pleasure I ever had.
Tell us about this photo. That is you at the Thames Refinery with the Queen in 2008?
That's right, that's right.
So why did she come to visit?
Well, the company always wanted to have the royal family come and visit. So eventually they got the okay, and we had a lot of work to do, a lot of security work, a lot of going on. But our day finally came, and it was absolutely a pleasure. She walked around all the different packing areas and distribution areas, and everybody was a delight to actually see her. It was one of probably the best days for Tate Lyle.
And how come you had the honor to be with her, to talk with her? It's because you were a supervisor? It's because of the role you were playing at Tate Lyle?
Yeah, it was because I was a manager of that department, and each manager from each department took the Queen around their own area. So I happened to be the manager of the 1kg SIG department at that time. So that was the reason I was able to take her around to meet everybody and talk to everyone. Yeah, it was very, very brilliant day. That's all.
It's a lovely photo. It's thanks to Alan who sent me this photo. So we have a beautiful photo of you with the Queen.
And we were surprised as well, because we couldn't believe that we were on the 6 o'clock news, the 8 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news. They were even ringing me up from Ireland to say, I'm sure we see you on the television with the Queen.
Richard, I'd like to go back to you for a moment before I ask Alan about the many jobs he's done for Tate Lyle. Richard, tell me more about this. What am I looking at in this picture?
Well, there are two. One was a book of technology by Oliver Lyle, which they gave me on one of the awards. What it was for Marieta's work. The one on the left-hand side is Albert Schweitzer's Gift of Friendship, and I've never read it since the day they gave it to me. I don't know why they gave it on, but the sugar technology, sugar refinery workers, was actually quite interesting. Every year they used to choose someone. Every year someone, and I, of those two particular occasions, with the electrician, but the mechanics and the bricklayers, and they all got one. So yeah, it was quite an honour.
And I guess the fact that they had those, they gave you a gift to recognize your work is one of the many ways in which we can see examples of how well Tate and Lyle treated their employees and why so many people wanted to work at Tate and Lyle, and they still do. For example, Alan, who has never wanted to retire. So Alan, tell us about what have you been doing for Tate and Lyle during these 50 years? How many years have you been?
57. 57 years now, yeah. Well, I started off on, although it wasn't called an apprenticeship, it was effectively an apprenticeship for technical work. I effectively did a 3-year apprenticeship, during which time I worked in every process department and did every process job, be it only for half a shift perhaps, but I did everything. So when I became a laboratory supervisor and was asking for additional work or more samples, I was aware of what it meant to the people doing it. So I didn't sort of ask for extra work frivolously. I knew what was involved. It was an interesting role. I stayed in the laboratory as an analyst. You have a photograph of me there, a much later one. Then I went to the technical department and helped in the automation, which started in the 1980s, where a lot of the process control was automated. Then in the mid-90s, I didn't fit too well in the refinery, but I was offered work at Tate Lyle Process Technology, which they sold technology rather than selling sugar. And that took me around the world. That became even more interesting. I've travelled into, I think I counted it up as about 65 different countries I've visited.
Wow.
In the course of my work, sometimes as little as 1 or 2 days, on one occasion 3 months, and that has been right around the sugar belt in the tropics. So it's given me a huge knowledge of the world, something which I'm very, very grateful for. It helps you understand the problems of different sorts of politics, religions. It's quite interesting. I mean, I've worked with all religions. I see both sides of the Israel-Palestine conflict. I've worked in Israel for several months. It sounds good. If there's time, I have an anecdote referring back to Kevin's mention of the Hesse floor demure young ladies. You have heard the story, Marieta.
I was about to ask you about the first time you were sent to talk to the ladies.
Right. I came. I didn't live at all in the area. I came from quite a few miles away, and I left school, a minor, all boys public school. So coming to work in the East End of London itself was quite a culture shock, but one that has been enjoyable for most of the 55 or 57 years. In my very first week, I underwent what I realised too late was effectively some sort of initiation. I was sent with a message to give to one of the demure young ladies depicted, not one of those actual ones, but typical of those, on the packing floor, the Hesse floor. Well, I was shunted around everywhere I asked, where is so-and-so? They all laughed and pointed me to somewhere else. And I got shunted all around the floor. And eventually one young lady said, "I think you're looking for me." And I said, "If you're so-and-so," whereupon she lifted her dress and exposed all that was available. I went bright red. Everybody was laughing. But in that present day, I would claim that I was severely traumatized, scarred for life. I'd never recover, and have to consider joining the Me Too brigade and seeking monetary compensation for sexual harassment. But in those days, it was normal. I think Kevin must have been referring to something very, very similar.
Kevin, is this a story, an anecdote that you can relate to? Does it sound familiar to you, this experience?
Well, I can tell you a story. I think it's a funny story. When we got married, because in the factory itself, there was actually a working bar, and it had sort of like open at, I don't know, 11 o'clock, and it wouldn't shut till sort of like 10 o'clock, the 10 shift. And it's amazing, really, because you got sort of like all the people, sort of, the machinists and all that, they're all going in for pints and they're working in big machines and all that. But one of them was, I actually was getting married, and what you done was you had a minder that looked after you, like, when you for that day you didn't do your job, someone else done your job. So what you used to do was everyone would come in and they'd all buy you a drink and all this. Like, you had one minder, and someone looked after his job as well, but he made sure that he got you home at the end of the day. And the funny thing was, I didn't really know much about it, to be quite honest with you, but drinking all the time. And when, I think must have been 11 o'clock, I think we started, and it was going home time around about 4 o'clock. But what the minder did, he had to take you home then, but he'll take you to the shower room, but you had to go through the ice and sugar department. You had to go through the you know what's coming here, don't you? The char department. And every department you went through, there was a gang waiting for you, and it was like feather and tard at the end, and you was covered in black soot and ice and sugar, and they just shoved you in the shower, sit in the shower, get you dressed. At the end of the day, once he pushed you through your street door, that was his job done.
And then
it was amazing. It was amazing, like, when you come out of the 3-4 different departments, you was actually covered in everything, like, that was part of the social of it, like, it was a brilliant place, like, that was one of our stories.
And talking about the girls, a lot of ladies, a lot of women, women who have been, because we have done a big social media campaign asking people to share photos, stories, and a lot of the ladies have said, "Oh, I worked at the Hesse floor," or "I was one of the Hesse girls." So can you explain a bit more about what does the Hesse floor mean, or what did the Hesse girls do? Is the Hesse floor and the packing department the same?
The Hesses, it was the name of the packing machine. It was made by a company called Hesse.
Okay.
So the Hesse floor was where all the Hesse machines were, and the Hesse girls were the girls that operated the Hesse machines.
Okay, so that's where the name comes from. Thank you. That's a question I did have. We can see in this photo, ladies having a tea break. And I was going to ask about the different facilities that employees could enjoy at Tate Lyle. Thanks to Kevin, now I know that you could also enjoy a bar on site. But yeah, you would like to tell me a bit more about the different facilities on site for people working at Tate and Lyle, and why did so many people wanted to work at Tate and Lyle? How did Tate and Lyle still treats their employees? Is the factory the better treated employees? It's about the wages. It's about the way managers treated the people working there. It's about the atmosphere. So what was it like to work there from a point of view of employers, employee, what was available for you there?
They were very good. As I said earlier, the managers, it was a family firm. Most of the employees were related to all the others in one way or another, and they were very caring about the employees. As Kevin said, there was a bar there that wouldn't be allowed nowadays, but they also had other facilities close by. They had the sports field, tennis, table tennis, there was snooker, billiards in the Tate Institute, athletics track, football pitch, cricket pitches, all these sort of facilities. And the other thing, of course, is that all of us went to work for basically for one thing, for money. And they were the highest payers in the area, highest pays anywhere. I mean, the reason I chose Tate Lyle to do laboratory work was I'd contacted over 30 different companies with a view to employment in the laboratory. Most of them offered me a job, but they all offered between £5 and £6 a week. Tate Lyle's offered me £12 a week. It was quite an easy choice to make which one to work for, and you know that was what we went to work for, and it made life very easy. But they were very caring. There was full-time nurses. We had surgery there with nurses on 24/7, barring about Christmas Day was probably the only day there wasn't a nurse on. Okay, she was there for routine things, little cuts and bruises, but also there was something about having a nurse. People would go to work although they didn't feel too well, because they could see the nurse, and it was far more friendly than taking a day off or a shift off and going to the doctor.
So instead of not going to work when you were feeling unwell, you would go to work when you were feeling unwell, because then you could be treated by the nurse.
I mean, we're talking about minor things, coughs, cold, flu. You could go straight into the surgery and get a drop of cough medicine. And when people had domestic problems, which there were, the nurse was somebody you could talk to. I mean, there's a lot being said today about mental health, and they have mental health first responders in the refinery now. But the nurse did all that in effect. She would listen to your tales of woe and advise and help. So she was a very important part, especially on shift work. Shift work more so than day work. I mean, shift work is more stressful. I mean, night shift is more stressful than day shift, and it was particularly valuable to have the nurse there. There was an ambulance on site. If you needed to go to hospital, the ambulance took you straight there. No, it was a good company to work for. It still is, but in a different way. Times have changed.
Richard,
Marieta,
would you like to add? Kevin, yes, please.
And I was just going to say, if I could just add on to that, which I thought was a funny thing at the time, which Alan was saying, like, you know, the first aid part of it, and being a youngster in there, what they did have, which I always thought was very strange, but now I've got older, I thought, what a good idea. They always used to have a shrubberist come in to do your feet, to do your feet. You know, my God, as I've older now, you know, I could really do with that person. I could really do with that person now. But you used to just go in there because you wear the big boots and all this, like, you know, and I always knew that you'd sort of like have hard skin. And a session with the old shrubberist, well, it worked wonders, like. And I thought, what strange. I always wondered until I got to middle age, what a strange thing to have. But then I thought to myself, I can see now, like, you know.
But again, you'd have to be off for half a day to go to a chiropodist. You went there for 1 hour, so they gained 4 hours from you. So it was a swings and it was help both sides.
Help them.
Yeah.
Teresa, Richard, would you like to add to why did you enjoy working there?
Well, from a point of view of an apprentice, the money that you were paid as an apprentice was out of this world at Tate Lyle. When you're in the last year of an apprenticeship, you were virtually on full money, on full engineer's money. And that was unheard of anywhere in an apprenticeship. You know, we 20 odd pound I was getting when I was 20, which was probably at least £5 more than me mates were getting. And that was a lot of money in a pub.
Teresa, what about you? What would you like to add?
Well, one of the other things about it, and the good thing is we used to get a bonus 4 times a year. It was small, but it started off, the first one to be small, but then it would go up. But that was a lot of money to us at them days. And plus the pension, I mean, Tate Lyle is probably the best pension in the world. And everybody that worked there, the majority of people worked there for the whole of their life, like myself and these guys. And they ended up being able to live at the standard they wanted to live at. They didn't have to worry about, you know, will I have a bit of money for this? Will I have a bit of money for that? Not like today, people have to pay in for their own and that. It was a brilliant company to work for. You would never look back.
Also got the bonuses, didn't you?
The bonus system?
Christmas bonus.
Christmas
Oh,
bonus.
the Christmas bonus, yeah. And we used to get a hamper every Christmas. And with parties, we used to go to the parties, and we used to have parties down to Circus Tavern once a year, and they invited back all the senior citizens. And then we as supervisors and management used to have to go down there to overlook that they behaved themselves and everything else. When they got there, the ladies more than the men, they drink too much. They used to have all cigars and cigarettes in glasses. Even though they didn't smoke, their family smoked. You used to take them all, put them in the bag, fill little bottles up a drink, and take them.
True EastEnders.
Nobody minded. It was all part of their day out.
I also have some copies of the, I think it was called Tate and Lyle News.
Yeah, Tate and Lyle
So I
News.
think it was like an 8-page publication.
Yeah.
And it's again another example of how Tate and Lyle treated employees as part of a big family. Is that on the Tate and Lyle News you could read about who was retiring, who was getting married, who was having a baby. I mean, all of these photos of people who is employees retiring and being celebrated, employees getting married and making the news on the Tate and Lyle newspaper, people who have babies, long service awards. Here we have a beautiful photo. Thank you very much to Mike Hawthorne for sharing this photo with us. This is refinery boss Bill Nelson with Mike's Aunt Lily on Lily's retirement day. All of these photos, all of these newspapers or copies of the Tate News show how much they did treat all of you as a family. I'm starting to understand much better why so many people, so many families in North Woolwich, Silvertown and other Royal Oaks communities talk about Tate and Lyle not only as a place to work, but as a second family, because you were treated as families. Your weddings were celebrated, your anniversaries were celebrated.
You used to save up for a year and have collections every month and every week when there was a retirement or a wedding or anything like that. And they just used to, every week, they used to do scratch cards and to build up all the money. And when it was the day of retirement, that particular department would shut down.
Yeah, that's fab. I mean, that's fabulous. I kind of like, I'm feeling sort of nostalgia of I've never worked anywhere in a place like that where people are treated as an extended family. However, as some of you also have pointed out, it was a place where you were dealing with big machinery and there were also risks. It was a place where sometimes accidents could happen. And I'd like to read a story that was sent to me by a lady called Fiona Potter. And I promised that I would read the story tonight as a tribute to his grandfather. And Fiona wanted us to remember her grandfather George, and she wanted me to read this tonight. George Samuel Rowland was born in 1893. According to the 1911 census, he was an 18-year-old case printer, an 18-year-old case printer working for Tate and Lyle's, along with his 16-year-old brother who made cases in the factory. My late father said that her grandfather, was walking through the shed near the wharf when a truck broke free and raced down the slope to the quayside. Her grandfather could see the truck was heading for a colleague who was deaf, so he very bravely ran and pushed him out of danger. Unfortunately, that meant that that put himself in the truck path, and the truck ran over his leg. George was taken on a trolley, like the old market barrows, to Poplar Hospital for treatment. But they were so concerned about his chest injuries that they did not check his leg. Gangrene set, and they had to amputate his leg. He was indeed, however, a very brave man. He was an ARP warden during the Second World War. He was on duty on the roof of the Romford Road Baths, and a very community-oriented person who went on to be a football coach and to run a children's pet club at the local cinema. So I promised Fiona that I would read this story about George Samuel, who had this unfortunate accident at Tate and Lyle Wharf, trying to save one of his colleagues. And I was very happy that I had the opportunity to share this story with all of you. Thank you very much, Fiona, for sending this. But talking about risk and health and first aid training, as some of you mentioned, the first aid and medical facilities were exceptional. And I have a photo here of Sarah, the nurse, during a first aid training. And I think it was Mike Hawthorne who posted this photo on Facebook. And when he did that, a lot of people went on to comment, what a lovely, beautiful, wonderful woman Sarah, the nurse, was. So I thought we would show this photo today in case any of you would like to add anything else about Sarah. Did you know Sarah? Did you work with her?
Yeah, she was nurse on my shift. Yeah, she was nurse on my shift. She was wonderful. I said about domestic problems. I had severe problems and was very, very down. And Sarah was wonderful. She supported me, helped me, talked me through my problems. And that was long before we all considered mental health to be a major issue. Unfortunately, she passed away not many years after that, with cancer. No, she was a lovely lady.
And can you explain to me what is happening in this photo? Is this one of the ships that brings sugar? And
yes,
what were they training for? What were they
practicing bringing somebody off of the ship who was injured? They couldn't necessarily carry them down a gangplank, so that would have been a way of getting a patient down on a stretcher hanging from the crane.
Okay. That's a fantastic photo. Thank you very much, Mike. And that gave us the opportunity to talk about Sarah, who is no longer with us, but a lot of people had a lot of wonderful memories of Sarah. And I'm sure a lot of people are very grateful to what Sarah did for them when they were working at Tate and Lyle. Kevin, I think you might be best placed to talk about this picture. Is that you third on the starting from the left? No, you're not in the
No, I'm not in that. I'm not in that picture. I'm in the other one, but I know supporters of the people that are in that picture. That was just before my time, actually. Yeah, that's the one.
That's
Pick,
is
can
that
you pick
is
me
that
out
the you
that
the big hair the
Yeah,
one
the
with the really
scruffy
big
one at
hair?
the back. The really big hair. Yeah, that was me. That was a they were called departmental games. That wasn't our Saturday or Sunday team. That was the warehouse team. I played for the warehouse there now, and we all worked in a warehouse. And what we'll do, we'll have like competitions throughout the year, like the electricians play the warehouse that play the engineers. It was like a inter-house tournament. That's actually me in the background now, catching a guy out. What happened was, Newham Recorder, Colin Granger would know a bit more about this. They used to come over sometimes, like fill their bits and pieces back on because the sports pages were really good for Newham Recorder, and sometimes you sent your own little clippets in, just to sort of like say how you got and all that, But no, that was they were great. That again, social times over there. My two boys now, 37 and 35. I mean, they were kids growing up over there. That's where we spent our weekends. As a family, we'd go over Saturday cricket. Lucky enough, Colleen cricket, so I was all right there, But we would spend most of the times over at Manor playing cricket, through the summertime, But the good thing about it was going back to the bar again. It was subsidised. All the factories were subsidised. You were paying pennies for a drink, And I used to have a drink called Wit and Whip. So what it was a bottle of whitbread. Like Al and you thought, wow, I'm getting a right result here. I'm getting 2 pints for the price of one, because I used to top it right up, right to the top, sort of thing, and then so you only had to have about 5 or 6 pints, and it was like double it up, sort of thing, But no, it was a great social life over with the cricket, That's without mentioning the football. Same sort of thing with the football as well. So no, they were great over there. I really didn't feel as if I was going to. When they decided to close it down, we actually moved to the gasworks at East Ham, I think it was. That's where the sports ground went, and I didn't really think too much about it. We did move down there to play and whatever, but after sort of like 3 or 4 months, you realise what you was missing. The sports ground stayed as it was for years. It just rotted away over there. I don't know what, whether they had to sell it or whatever. I'm not too sure whether it was owned by someone else and the lease run out or whatever. But it was a shame, really, because being around that area as well, getting the 101 buses and driving and that, and you'd always look to the right when you come down to the Beckham Way, and you could see the sports ground, and you thought, you could just see it going to waste in the end. That's it. That actually there is, I think it's like a mini railway that they used to have going through there. But
so this was the original sports ground?
Yes, but that obviously, that all around that side, what you can see is all allotments, all that. But if you look further over, you can see the sight screens of the cricket. That's on a top pitch. What they actually had 2 cricket pitches up there and 3 football pitches. A lot of people didn't know, they just, all they see was where you can see the air hanger. That's all the changing rooms on the top left hand corner. That was all the changing rooms, but it actually led down into the main North Village Road, and people could only see that part of the ground. They didn't realise that there was like pitches, a bowls green, all tennis courts, grass tennis courts, and to the right on further, you could see the end of the Thames. The River Thames going round, it was a lovely place. It was a lovely place to be.
And just so I understand, what is that nowadays?
I don't know what it's turned into, to be quite honest with you. I know the Galleons, was it the hotel? The Galleon Hotel
Yes,
was just on the left-hand side there, but I don't
Okay.
know what they've turned. I really don't know what they've turned it into now.
So it's more or less near where the University of East London is now, around that near Albert Dock.
I think.
Yeah.
It's
Do you know when you?
now? I think it's a shopping centre area.
Ah, it's above it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know when you? Do you know when you
Street.
come? When you come around from what used to be the roundhouse and all that, you used to go to bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, when you go over the second bridge, it was just on the right-hand side there before you come down to the big roundabout. Yeah. You lose your bearings a little bit, like you know, because it's all changed
so much.
Yeah, it's all changed. But I say that was where I spent a lot of my younger weekend days, like you know, over there. It was a good place to be.
And I love how you are called the Sugar Man. Sour taste of defeat for Sugar Man.
You have to show us the one that we lost in, did you? No, yeah, that they always put like a little what they call it, a little mix thing in there, like you know, the sour taste. It's an headline, isn't it? You know, but no, some of the guys there, as I say, the guy in the middle, are still friends with him to this day. Charlie Illman, his name is, like you know, and he was such a good cricketer and footballer. Like you know, he was the star. He'd be the star of the show. Like you know, he was good. He was good, but they was all good lads.
Before I show the last round of photos, including some more photos of social events and some drinking, and a photo of a chimney that perhaps not a lot of people have seen, thanks to Alan. Let's have a look at some of the comments that have been people have been sharing and sending to us tonight. Colin Granger, who has been mentioned before, lovely tribute to Jenny. Thank you very much. Well, thanks to Thames Festival for allowing us to play this, to pay this tribute to Jenny Munro this evening. Robert is answering one of my previous questions. Glass plate is normally a photography term, as the original photos were taken on chemically treated glass. So perhaps the photo should say glass plate dog photo, meaning how it was taken. Robert, I think you're right. I think the glass plate was about the sort of photo, not what was in the photo. David Conroy says the Hesse floor, so the ladies' floor, was a very stressful place to work. I spent 7 weeks in and around between my OS and AS. I don't know what OS
O levels and A levels.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, of course, around there between my O levels and A levels. The woman's language was as juicy as any socket. David, you probably learned more with the Hesse floors than with the books for your A levels and O levels. Russell says, my uncle was the personal manager, Albert Evans. Yeah. Thank you very much, Russell. Then it's a pleasure that you are joining us this evening. Adam says, my granddad Tate Cox worked there. Adam, thank you very much for joining this evening. You also have family memories. I think he has corrected himself. He's talking about his granddad, Ted Cox, who worked there. Victoria, my grandfather, Fred Palmer, worked on Tate and Lyle. Thank you very much for joining, Victoria. I think it's actually it's more difficult to find somebody who doesn't know anybody who worked at Tate and Lyle. Lorraine says, Lorraine Cox, so she's replying to the gentleman who just made a comment, and your uncle Steve and your nan for a short while, but we don't talk about that. So a lot of people are saying, I mean, once you start talking about Tate and Lyle, everybody knows somebody who worked or whose grandfather or nan or aunt worked at Tate and Lyle. Lorraine, thank you very much for watching and commenting. Joy says, I love Kevin's stories. +1, me too. Stu says, great to see you, Teresa, looking very well. Yes, indeed, Teresa, you look really, really, really very well. I think that's the effect of working at Tate and Lyle. You all look very good. And Alan is still there after 55 years. So that
57.
shows 57. Colleen is Kevin's wife, and I think she's talking about, well, Kevin was talking about what happened before he got married, and Colleen says, I did enjoy that party or that ritual. I was marrying him the next day. And thanks to Tate and Lyle, Kevin went to his own wedding completely hungover, according to Colleen. Joy has a question that I think our guest tonight can answer. Did the Tate Institute just have events, or was it open as a regular bar? Did you have to be a member? Would you like to answer Joy's question?
You had to be a member. Yeah.
You had to be a member. I think, if I remember rightly, you used to have a little card. Your works number card or whatever, you know. But if you was a regular in there, they knew your faces or whatever and all that, you know. So that was pretty good. But no, I think I mentioned it to Joy before, you know, going over the institute, the retirement parties. They had retirement parties, and they had weddings. I think they had wedding parties and everything. Yeah, it was fully functional. You know what they'll do? They'd open the back up because it had a big hall in there, you know. So that would be the function rooms. But the workers could still go into the front part of it because it was a front bar as well, you know. I mean, the times I've been upstairs, you know, and I think they had 4 full-size snooker tables up there, you know. That's what I would do, because at that time when I first started, I only lived around the corner, Constant Street, which was like 2 roads away, and you know, I'd meet a couple of my friends and we'd spend, you know, a couple of hours having a game of snooker, you know. They were lovely, massive, big, proper tables, you know. But no, it was fully functional institute, you know, everything was going on in it. They had, as I say, we tried to do I think the interdepartmental badminton tournament, and I think the roof was but it didn't work 100%, I've got to say, because it kept it in the ceiling, you know, it kept it in the ceiling and coming down again. But yeah, there was all of it, darts. There was all departmental things going on, you know. Oh no, in its time, it was fully functional all the time, you know. It was good.
Joy was also asking about rivalry between a sports team, and Lorraine, who is watching live, answered for us saying I think it was only rivalry, but in a friendly way. So thank you, Joy and Lorraine, for that question and that answer. Colin says, we had a bowls team in the recorder and used to play friendly matches in the sports ground occasionally. There might have been crates of light ales at each end, but I couldn't possibly confirm. Lorraine is talking about one of the nurses, and Lorraine says, the time that she was working there, the nurse was Sister Grace.
Sister Grace was the day work, head of the department, day work, as opposed to the nurses on each shift.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lorraine, and thank you, Alan. Question for Alan. Did you know Jim Fitzgerald in the lab?
Fitzgerald, nope. No. Can't place him. Not in my time.
Well, so if anybody's watching live, you can either comment if you do remember Jim Fitzgerald, or this video is going to stay on the Facebook page of the Thames Festival. So you all of you watching, you can come back to the video, you can come back to the questions and the comments and continue adding the stories and information and replying to each other's questions, so all of us can learn more about your stories and your memories. David is answering one of my previous questions about the sports field, and he says, I'm fairly sure that the sports ground is all blocks of apartments as you go over the end of the Stephen Redgrave Bridge is where they start. So, okay, so I think it's, if you go over the bridge, you've got North Woolwich behind you, you cross the bridge, University of East London is to the right, sorry, to the left, and to the right you have, and then to the right you have apartments and then galleons. So where the apartments are is where the sports field is, which makes sense because you were talking, Kevin, about being very close to where the galleons is. And Joey says, yes, I think that's what it is as well. And David says the Ferry Festival had the darts tournament in the Institute, adding to that previous question about could you go to the Tate Institute only for Tate and Lyle events. And we're going to go back now to the photos, now that we're talking about social events, because that's the last round of photos that we had for tonight anyway. So if you could clarify a bit about when we are talking about the social events, I'm going to show you a series of photos, but I think I read the children events would take place in the factory. All of the social events would take place at the Tate Institute. And I would like you to clarify, those social events, were they organized by Tate and Lyle for the employees, or was it organized by the employees themselves? I'm going to show you some photos. Let me get, and let's go back to the photos. That's a children party. That's the Tate Institute that we have been talking about. That's a Tate Social Games December 1963 picture. Thank you very much to Stan Dyson, who has allowed me to use this picture. And another picture, I think it might be the same night. Tate Social Games December 1963. And I think, Kevin, are you in this photo?
Yes,
are you the second from the left?
Second from the left with my mouth full. Chicken and chips.
So can you tell me a bit more about the social events? Who organized these events?
Well, all I can remember is it wasn't sort of like, as I say, there wasn't like an organisation. It was just like what was coming up. Whether there was like a 25-year-old part, 25 wedding party or a retirement party, you just like booked it. The funny thing was, in my time, whatever it was, as you say, we was like all friends, all family. Everyone went to everyone's party, like whatever it was, whether it was a marriage party or a retirement party. You know, I mean, the in the picture there, the one in the middle, that was the one. Ray Nancy's name is. He was the one that see me to my front door and chucked me through. So that was him, and also his brother, Colin Nancy's he's my best man at my wedding. So they were very close to me, the two brothers at that time. We played a lot of football together. Unfortunately, they've both passed now, like, you know, so, but no, there's Jazzy as well. Sorry.
Yeah. I was going to say, is that Jazz in second from the right?
Yeah, Jazz. I can't think of the last one's name. He was an engineer, a mechanic or whatever. I can't think of his name. Yeah, but that's Jazzy there as well.
Yeah.
But no, we were just like, again, it was like a function sort of thing where if you wanted to go in, you buy a ticket, and you're in. You know, the more the merrier, really. That's how it worked. Obviously, the friends and the family were sort of like there, but just to make the numbers up as well. But you went to parties and it's the same people. It was the same people, you know, all the time. Like, you know, that was that. Yeah, so it wasn't really organized functions. It was just like celebrations of, you know, different times, like, you know, birthdays and weddings and whatever. You know, and that's how it was working.
It was really just like a commercial hall, really. If you wanted it for a particular Saturday, you booked it.
Yeah.
Used to go, at the time I was there. It was Soupy Edwards used to run the club, and we had many apprentice dances there. But he used to go over and see Soupy and say, "Can we book it for Saturday the 6th of November?" And it's booked up. You'll have to have the next week. We used to organise dances and then print our tickets and sell them, you know, to our mates and that.
Right.
And away we went. And I think it was the same. All the different departments would just book it for whatever they wanted.
Teresa, I can see you smiling. Have you got happy memories at the Tate Institute?
Yeah, we went to have Alan and Kevin and Richard the same. You know what I mean? We went to many parties there. Everybody absolutely enjoyed themselves. You never had any trouble there. It didn't matter how much drink people seemed to have had. They were all coming out of there happy. They might be staggering a little bit, but everyone was happy. You were able to invite your friends as well. And as I say, the weddings and everything, retirements, you name it, they had it now. But it was so enjoyable. And as I say, you were able to just take everybody with you.
For the Thames Festival followers who might not be very familiar with the Tate Institute building that we are talking about, which is in Silvertown, more or less across the road from where Tate and Lyle Thames Refinery is, the Tate Institute in Albert Road opened in 1887 by Henry Tate as an educational and recreational club for his employees. It closed in 1893.
1993.
1893, bought by West Ham Council and converted into a public library and hall, which opened in 1938. And then it was leased back to Tate and Lyle as a social club in 1961, if I got my notes right. And we had this couple of photos from Stan Dyson of a party in December 63, I guess, inside the Tate Institute. And I was wondering if any of you could explain what are these ladies and gentlemen doing here? What do you think? I
remember seeing that. That was quite a comedy. It was a string, and they used to have, I think it was a spoon and a fork on it. And the first person started off, and the men had to pass it down their sleeve, the trousers, and they used to pass it all the way along. I think it come out after people had 2 or 3 pints.
And just before we wrap it up and read the last comments, this is a photo that not a lot of people have seen. This gentleman is called Roger Toastbean, and he's at the top of the 220 feet old brick chimney before it was demolished. And Alan, I think you took this photo.
No, I didn't take that one.
Oh, you didn't take it. Sorry.
No,
sorry.
I took the one from the top of the chimney looking down on the refinery. That one, yeah. That was the day before they started the demolition. And I sweet talked the contractors and got to the top of the chimney, took a few photographs, came down, got hauled in front of the shift manager. This was on a Sunday. Got told my fortune. Monday was my day off, but I was called into work, hauled in front of the personnel, who gave me another telling off. And before I left the office, with a wry smile, they said, "Could we have a copy of the photographs, please?" Because cameras were forbidden on site as well. That was the other thing, that I'd not only broken all the rules for going up there, but I had a camera with me. So yeah, so I don't think they took the rollicking too seriously.
And this gentleman Roger, he was the one managing the demolition.
He was a project manager for the demolition. Yeah, it's huge, the chimney. You don't realise it, but as you can see, the wall is about 6 foot thick. And interestingly, every Easter, the refinery shut down completely, boiler house included, and they had to go in and clean the soot out from the bottom of the chimney. And if you went in there and looked up, being so tall, and being black, no light got in from the sun, even during the daytime. So you could see the stars. So midday, you could look up and see stars.
And I've got, before I read the last series of comments and questions that people from the audience have sent tonight, with this photo of Teresa with the Queen, I've got a last question for her. You were promoted to different roles, and supervisor, manager. Was that an easy thing at the time for a woman, or was it because Tate and Lyle was an easier place where you could get promoted for your work, even if you were a woman?
I must say, it was a woman working in a man's world. But I can honestly say I never had a problem. Everybody was absolutely lovely to work with. Everybody helped you out. We worked together as a team in all the different departments. It didn't matter which department I went into work in, which I worked in probably every department in Tate Lyle. But everybody was so helpful, and it was all as teamwork. And that's what it's all about. And you can't do anything unless you've got that teamwork to work with you. It was very good.
But were you one of the first females to have those positions of manager, supervisor?
No. I actually took over my role from female. And that was down in Plaistow when Ethel Calhoun, she was my governor. And then from there, I moved down to Thames, and I was one of the first in Thames refinery, in the packing department, to make it to management.
And we can see you. I love this photo because the Queen looks really, really engaged, and you look like really serious, like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You are the boss, Teresa. We can really see it in this picture.
Yeah. It was absolutely to walk around with her, and she was so different, and she was just like an ordinary person. She talked to all of the packing operators, everybody that she wanted to speak to, she spoke to. But it was actually a pleasure for everybody that day, not just for me, but the whole of the refinery, to be able to have the Queen and Prince Philip walk around with us. Brilliant.
Marvelous. And let's have a look at the last comments from the audience. We have, Joy has a question for Alan. What is your fondest memory working at Tate and Lyle? And that's going to be a very difficult question to answer because he's been there 57 years.
I think my fondest memory is Chris Abel asked me 3 years ago if I would speak at the Palace of Westminster, a short speech to a gathering of MPs, members of the House of Lords, Lord and ladies. It was a bit of a PR exercise for Tate and Lyle's when they were pushing for a better sugar regime. I was as nervous as hell, but yes, it was a great honour to be asked. And I mean, the speakers were somebody from the Australian High Commission, the author of the Sugar Girls book, Stephen Timms, the Newham MP, and myself. So all of those were very used to public speaking. and me. so I had something to follow, and but they were wonderful, and it was a fabulous evening. Yeah.
Chris has a very interesting question. I think Tate and Lyle used to make a rum called Caroni. Did anyone try any of the Tate and Lyle rum?
Yes.
I want only true answers. Don't lie to me.
No. Yes, because it was actually from the Caroni plantations in the Caribbean, in the West Indies.
It was a light rum, wasn't it?
Well, they had light and dark.
Yeah.
Light and dark rum. Yeah, but we could buy it in the shop there at the Tate Institute. Something ridiculous. So 5 shillings a bottle or something silly. 25 pence in modern money. Yeah.
Well, I think on my first Christmas bonus, I mean, that's what Christmas bonus was a big bonus at Christmas, like, when everything went right. And I remember sort of like, you'd go out Christmas week, and because you were so young, you didn't have nothing else to spend it on, like, and straight out down the institute, drinking a bit of this rum, going down the road, ending up at sort of like the Henley, the Kent Arms, and that was a night that I would never forget, and it put me off of rum and whiskey for the rest of my life. Like, that was my first Christmas bonus. Like, and I said, never again am I going to drink rum or whiskey. that was my take on the rum and the whiskey thing.
Joyce,
Joyce saying that a lot of the ladies who nowadays go to the community center in North Woolwich. Jo is the director of the community center in North Woolwich, the Royal Dogs Learning and Activity Center, and Jo is saying that in fact a lot of the ladies who go to the center, ex-Sugar Girls, talk a lot about that rum. Talking about Sugar Girls, before I forget, there's an idea of, I don't know if a lot of you may know that there is a statue for the Dockers near where Excel is, somewhere between Victoria Dock and Albert Dock. And there's an idea brewing of perhaps trying to have the other side of the Royal Docks, near Tate and Lyle, to have a statue for the Sugar Girls. So that's an idea that it's circulating. I think it is a lovely idea. So we have the Dockers one side of the Royal Docks, and we would have a statue for the Sugar Girls the other side of the Royal Docks, to pay tribute to all of those memories that we have been sharing, to pay tribute to those very scary ladies at the Hearth of Floor. So I have learned today that they were actually scary for some of you young boys. But later today, in the days to come, do let us know on comments on social media, what do you think about this idea of having a statue for the Sugar Girls? Is it something you'd like to see happening? David says, according to Terry Abbott, West Ham Boxing Club had the boxing shows in Lyles at Plaster Wharf and later in the Tate's Institute. Thank you for that, David. Ellie Abbott says, I had my wedding reception in the Institute in 1999. Oh, thank you, Ellie. I know Ellie. She's a lovely, lovely, lovely woman. So I'm very, very happy that she's sharing such a happy memory with us this evening. Angela says, such a shame the Tate Institute going to rack and ruin. It is actually a very, besides all the happy memories, from a design point of view, it's actually a really beautiful building. So yeah, it is a pity that it's not in a very good state. And she's sharing some ideas of what could be done with the building. Julie says, my family have a rich history at Tate Lyle from 1910 to the 1980s. That's 70 years of family members being linked to Tate and Lyle. Does anyone know if you can apply for employment records from the HR department? So if anybody watching can answer this question to Julie, you can answer as a comment to Julie's question, or if anybody watching from Tate and Lyle has the answer, please feel free to send me a message, email me. A lot of people watching tonight have my email address, and I will post the answer to Julie's question. Joy says a Sugar Girls statue would be amazing. I agree. And Asif Shako says, my late beloved father used to drive HGV tankers for Tate and Lyle Sugar. He passed his class 1 driving test for these kind of vehicles on the 7th of July, 1976, and proceeded to complete his tank training course. And I think I'll have to wrap it up, because if we continue, we will continue having comments and comments, because so many people, thousands of people, and so many hundreds of family worked or had memories, had events at Tate and Lyle, or thanks to Tate and Lyle. And it's been an absolute pleasure to share some of them this evening with all of you. So thank you to everybody who has been watching tonight, who has been commenting, asking questions, sharing comments. And of course, thank you to Kevin, to Richard, to Riza, and Alan for being with us this evening. Guys, I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. And to all of you watching, please keep an eye on the Thames Festival social media website, because episode 4 of the Islanders will be back next month, and we'll be talking about growing up in Royal Docks. So a lot of stories to share about your childhood, your memories growing up in the Royal Docks. And I hope you're not as traumatized as a young man who went to work at Tate and Lyle and had to deal with the brave woman of the House of Lords. So thank you very much, everybody. And let's put an end to tonight's show with the music video, with some of the photos that we have been talking about this evening. Big kiss to everybody.